we have amongst us a very renowned sports person, Ms. Nisha Millet. Nisha Millet is a swimmer from Bangalore, Karnataka. Nisha Millet and the Arjuna Award winner was the only woman in the 2000 Sydney Olympics swimmer for India. She had a near drowning experience at the age of 5, following which her father insisted she overcome a fear and learn how to swim. In 1991, Nisha learned how to swim under the guidance of her father. By 1992, she had won her first state level medal in 50 meters freestyle in Chennai. In 1994, while still a sub-junior, Nisha won all 5 freestyle gold medals at the senior national level and beat India's top swimmers. The same year, she also won her first international medal at the Asian Age Group Championship in Hong Kong. She was the start of this was the start of Nisha's regime. She represented India at the 1998 Asian Games in Thailand, World Championship in 1999, and Indianapolis in 2004. She has won medals for the country at both Afro-Asian Games and SAF Games. She was the only Indian athlete to win 14 gold medals at the National Games in 1999. At the peak of your career, Nisha represented India at the 2000 Sydney Olympics in 200-meter freestyle. She won her heat but failed to qualify for the same semi-finals. She was the first Indian woman to meet the B qualification timings for the Olympics. After undergoing a back surgery in 2000, she narrowly missed out on the 2004 Olympic qualification and decided to retire from competitive swimming due to heavy financial burden on her parents. Some of the awards: Prime Minister's Award for Best Sportswoman of the National Games in 1997 and 1999. Highest gold medals, 14 gold medals in sports in the Manipur National Games in 1999. Arjuna Award given to highest sports person in India in 2000. The Rajyotsava Award in 2001, Karnataka State Ekalavya Award in 2002, Afro-Asian Games Women's Backstroke Silver Medal in 2003. Currently, she heads Nisha Millet Swimming Academy, which offers a host of services, including swimming coaching for all age groups, training for champions, and other events, among others. Ma'am, welcome to this event, and we are delighted to have you over here.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, ma'am. I now request our director, Dr. Manasa Nagabhushan, to address the gathering.
Very good morning to one and all. Good morning, Nisha. And we are very happy and very proud that you have joined our program today on the interdisciplinary guest lecture. And to achieve so much is reaching such great heights is certainly, I really, when she read out your CV, I was getting goosebumps, like understanding and getting into this whole act of sports and achieving every time. And now I can understand how you had set goals and what is the effort behind the whole thing. Because even smaller things to just achieve a very small thing also is very, very tough, and it requires lot of mind power. And until and unless you work mindfully, it is not possible to do something like this. And overcoming all the obstacles, because we know that anything, whatever you have to do, you will have several obstacles, both external as well as internal, right? Yes. So on one hand, if you have external obstacles, then on the other, to overcome those external obstacles, lot of internal constraints will also be built in us. Yes. And overcoming these internal obstacles and trying to achieve in the field to this great extent, and winning so many awards for the country. And this is really a proud moment for us, for Ramaiah institutions, to have you and then get inspired actually. because
Thanks a lot.
every moment of our lives we need such inspiration as to somebody guiding you. Yes, this is the way you have to go ahead and do it. So I think that our students have got a wonderful opportunity today, and they'll have to realize, each one of you, I'm telling you, all students will have to realize that for very small things we are disturbed, we are confused, and we do not know how to go forward and try and do something. And every time we consider these obstacles as very big, and then we think that we cannot overcome. But today we have an example with us who is sitting here, and who is ready to share her experiences, and how a passion of sports can enable you to become better management professionals also. Because today is the day of multidisciplinarity, and all campuses will have to work towards becoming more multidisciplinary in nature. See, what happens is, once you pursue a passion, when you pursue a passion, you are ready to overcome all the hurdles and the constraints. So that release of these blocks, when you are trying to do something, release of all these blocks from the mind will enable you to focus and do better in your other career also. So that's why we say that we need to have a multidisciplinary approach, whether it is sports or music or dance or any other passion which is very close to your heart. See, just working with your brain is not enough, right? So when you take up these disciplinary courses, you work only with your brain. So when you work with your brain, once again you become evaluative and judgmental in nature, and you will be in a loop. You cannot come out of it. Whereas once you get into a passion, your heart works there, and then come what may, because it is something which is very close to your heart, come what may, you will try and achieve it. So in such a situation, I think that this blend of sports or any other passion for that matter, along with these disciplines, will bring a very big difference to our lives, and it is very, very important. And this is a very good opportunity, because at Ramaya Institute of Management also we have introduced for the upcoming batch, that is the current batch, when they get into their third semester and fourth semester, we have introduced sports management as one of the minors. And then we are also coming out with a 11-month postgraduate program on sports management. Okay, so wherein students who have both passion, and they convert this passion into their profession. So this is one thing that Ramaya Institute of Management is also attempting to. And at this point, we have Nisha Millet, who has come here, and we are really proud of you for whatever you have achieved. From all the members of Ramaya Institute of Management, we would like to honor you and congratulate you for whatever you have done. We request you to be this kind of a role model for many more generations to come. Thank you, Nisha. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
joining. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Nagavishnu. Very sweet of you.
Nisha ma'am, over to you.
Very good afternoon. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And it's great to be here talking to youngsters, which is what I love to do. I've been teaching now for 19 years in the sport of swimming, so it's great because I've interacted right from toddlers who are 1 year old all the way to my oldest swimmer who is 84. So it's great, whatever little I can help and I can share with you, it's my privilege to do it. So I'll just take you through a brief history of my swimming career, and I'll also talk about how I graduated into starting my own business as a swimming academy, and that transition, what qualities from my sports career helped me finally in managing my own business, and how the two are very, very similar in many ways. So I was actually a very quiet kid. My father used to come pick me up from the school. I used to be talking to myself, sitting quietly under a tree, so not outgoing and very confident. And when I was 5 years old, I had a near drowning experience, and I was quite scared of the water. I was only 5. I fell into a small pond. And by the time, my parents pulled me out, I had this bad fear of water. So at 9 years, my mom and dad took me over to the pool, which is close to my house in Chennai. And, it went very badly. I was not some fish in the water when I dived in and I instantly became good. I actually didn't learn anything. The teachers in those days, they would throw the children in. I'm sure a lot of your parents might have learned that way, where they throw you into the pool, into the deep end, so that you try and struggle and move and you learn how to swim. But for somebody who was already very scared, what happened was I just got totally put off. My fear started coming back, and I said, I don't want to swim anymore. And that's when my dad said, Nisha, I've paid 100 rupees for these classes. Now, in the early 90s, 100 rupees was a lot for a young child. So, because I felt bad, he had put in money, I finished the course, but I didn't learn anything. So it was finally my dad who got me into the pool and started getting me to just have fun in the water. Before learning how to swim, he just wanted me to have fun. He would throw coins, I would dive in to get it. He would make me float on my back and look at the sky. So I started falling in love with the water. So that's how I started enjoying being in a very different environment. So, when we teach people, we always tell people that like a baby takes many months, close to a year to learn how to walk and then to run. Similarly, in the pool, it's a totally different environment. So first you have to enjoy being there. Then you can learn things like walking in the water, putting your face in. So this is what happened. And once I started swimming, I went and approached a swimming coach who was in the same pool. I used to see all the kids having fun, talking, chatting, racing each other. And something about this was very exciting for me. So I went and asked him if I could join the team. And that's when he allowed me to join the swim team in Chennai. And that was the start of my swimming career at the age of 9.5, close to 10. And like they say, is no looking back. From 10 years all the way till 23, 24, when I retired, I had a really tough schedule. So I'll share that with you. This is the first lesson that I've learned from sports for sure. The first lesson is discipline. If you want to achieve anything, you have to have some goals. You cannot go about it in a kind of just wander through life. So when you're a sports person, something you're taught very young is to set goals, whether it's a timing, whether it is a competition like qualify for the state level or win a gold medal or do your best time. So I would always write down my goals, first my short-term goals, like, by the end of this month, I want to do this timing. In 6 months, my medium-term goal, I want to win a medal at the state. And in the long term, my goal would be to go to the nationals and win a medal. And what that helped me with is give me some kind of focus. I'll tell you what a normal day in our life was. And this is from the age of almost 10 all the way to 23, 24. We would get up at 4:30 in the morning. We would get to the pool by 5 o'clock, 2 hours of swimming, almost 8 to 9 kilometers. And then we would eat our breakfast, idli, sambar, dosa, sandwiches, whatever mommy had packed. We'd eat it in the car on the way to school. And one thing my parents and the teachers and principal were always clear that, yes, you're a sports person, but education is also important. So both have to go hand in hand. You cannot do one without the other. So while my father used to push me more towards swimming, my mother would push me also to make sure my studies don't slip. So that is something I really appreciate from, with them, is that the balance was very good. It was not only swimming, it was not only studies. I have a lot of parents now who come and they want the child to be number one in swimming and number one in studies. That will never happen. So my parents said that, yes, you should be focused on your studies, do your work, do your homework regularly, go for all your exams. But we expect good marks, first class from you. We don't expect you to come first in your whole class. So this really helped me focus. So I would do a full day of school. Again, we would go back to the pool for another 2.5 hours, almost 7 to 8 kilometers of swimming in the evening. And by the time you finish that, you've had 2 swimming sessions plus school or college. You're exhausted, So the good thing about being a sports person is that discipline that it brings you. I didn't have too much of time to go for parties, to take up any bad habits like smoking or drinking, because my whole life was, very disciplined. And I knew if I had a late night, the next morning in my swim practice, I wouldn't do as well. So I was really self-motivated. So how does that come about? That definitely comes about about how you talk to yourself in your mind. So this is something I want to tell all the youngsters out there, is you need to have very good internal conversations with yourself. What people tell you on the outside, your friends, your family, yes, it can definitely affect you. But the one thing that is the most effective that can change your life for the good or for the bad is a conversation you have with yourself. So from a very young age, yes, my family environment was very good. My parents were very motivating. My sister was also in the sport. And the way I started talking to myself in my own head was very positive. So even if I had a bad day, I would be a little upset and I'd say, okay, I have my goals, let me focus on them. So from a very young age, in 1992, I was watching the Barcelona Olympics and I saw a swimmer called Matt Biondi, who's an American, and he was diving into the water like a dolphin, and he looked so graceful and amazing. And something just clicked in me. They say when you know what you're passionate about, it's just like a light bulb moment. And it's just when I said to my father that I want to go for the 2000, I want to go for the Olympics. That was my dream. And in 1992, I was just, 10 years old. The easiest thing would be for somebody to laugh. The biggest gift my parents give me is they never laughed. They took it really seriously. They said, whatever we can do from our side, whether it's money, whether it's time, whether it's effort, we will put from our side, but we expect the same from you. And if you have this goal, we'll help you do whatever it can. So it became a whole family affair. My sister used to swim as well. She was in asthma. She had asthma, so they had, insisted that she swim to improve her lungs. I was really wanting to compete. So it became, the good part was it became a family affair. My whole family would go in the morning, finish the class at dining table in the night. We'd still be talking about swimming. So swimming became really the big passion of our lives. And slowly we started working towards getting to the goal. And my goal was, yes, one day to go to the Olympics. So fast forward till 1996, and this was the Atlanta Olympics. I was just 14 years old, and I was the national champion at the time in some events. In some of the other events, like the breaststroke or butterfly races, we had some other girls who were doing very well. So we all had a chance to qualify for the Olympics. There's a qualifying time that the International Federation sends, and none of us made this qualifying time. So this, I think, was my first lesson in life, that even if you work hard, sometimes you don't always get what you want. It does not mean you give up. So I was faced with the decision at 14. I was, quite young. I was only a teenager. So I obviously cried. And, finally what happened, there was a lot of politics. Somebody paid up, and some swimmer who was not even an Indian swimmer. Her father was Indian, but she lived in America. She, bribed some officials and she got to go for the 1996 Olympics. So this was quite a turning point in my career where I could have either given up and said, what can I do? I'm so upset. This is when I think the point of, one is my internal talk to myself that, no, you have more in you. You can do this. Plus a very good support system, whether it's my coach, my sister, my friends, my parents. They all said, you still have 4 more years. You're very young. In 2000, you'll be 18. Let's focus on this and you can do it. And that's when my parents said, see, we're not going to bribe any officials. If you want to get to the Olympics, you have to do it with your own effort, with your own hard work. You have your goal. Now it's your chance now in the next 4 years to work for this goal. So what I'm trying to tell you also to this is, don't look at only the short-term goals. Yes, it's very important, but you must have a long-term, a long-term goal as to what do I want for my life? Where am I taking it? You have to put in effort consistently over many, many years. I think that's very, very important. So from 1996 to 2000, I did whatever it took, cutting down on junk food. I used to love chocolates. I still do, but it meant that I had to eat healthier. It meant no parties or meeting friends, missing so many functions. Even my birthday, January 1st morning, people would be sleeping. I would be in the pool at 5 a.m. swimming. So that's the kind of dedication it took. Another thing that you learn very well, which I'd like to tell all of you as management students, and one day, entrepreneurs who might start your own businesses or become CEOs one day of, Fortune 500 companies. One other thing that sports teaches you is time management. You realize that, number one, you have only so many hours in the day. You have to make the best of it. Also, as an athlete, I think we realize that fractions of a second, like I have won races or lost races by 0.10, 0.50 milliseconds, so you understand the value of time and you don't want to waste it. So this is something that really helped. So in those 4 years, I literally used whatever time I had, whether it's proper recovery, eating, pushing myself, working harder, getting physically fitter. And in 1999, next year was the Olympics in 2000, I was still about 2 seconds away from the Olympic qualifying time. Now, 2 seconds is quite a lot in a 200-meter freestyle at that level. So instead of giving up, my parents, my coach, we all really pushed to try and change something in the way I'm training. And I was lucky at that point to get a scholarship to go to Australia. The great thing about the Australians, I'm sure all of you have seen the Australian athletes, especially the cricketers, who you are probably most familiar with. One thing they have that I think Indians don't have, or we are learning to work on that more, is mental strength. I really learned how to be mentally strong when I was in Australia. They don't feel too sorry for themselves. If they fail, they pick themselves back up and they push harder the next day. I think a lot of us, at least I felt myself, when I lose, I would take a lot of time, feel very upset, I would cry. I would let it get to me too much, and I wouldn't keep. It would take some time for me to refocus. So this is something I learned over there, and something that is really good was I started seeing a sports psychologist. Now in India, the word psychologist is a very scary thing. That, oh my God, something must be wrong with them if they're going to a psychologist. But for all foreign athletes, part of their normal thing, like eating well or training hard in the gym, is also to see a sports psychologist to work on your mind. So that really helped me, and I think that's helped me the rest of my life, where you have to keep getting mentally also strong. So what else can you do to make yourself stronger? So even when I talk to kids from either schools or colleges or management institutes like yourself, my message to you is, you have to cut out the noise. Sometimes you have to listen and believe in your own self. There really is nobody else who can do it. Even when in terms of swimming, yes, I had an amazing team around me, who really supported me. Without them, yes, for sure, it would have been tough. But ultimately, when I'm in the pool, I'm the only one who can swim the race. I'm the only one who can get the medal or achieve the timing. So then I started taking a little more, initiative, taking more responsibility for my own actions, really pushing myself, mentally making myself stronger, cutting out the distractions. Nowadays, I think, in the late 90s and early 2000s, there wasn't that many distractions. Mobile phones had just come, but, we didn't even have the money to, for our prepaid cards. That's how tough it was. Nowadays, there's so many distractions. I see that even with my kids. I have 7-year-old twins, and they love the computer and phone and video games. In some ways, life was easier back then, where we didn't have so many distractions. So the first thing I would say is find some time in your day where you're not on your phone, not on your computer, where you can do something you like. Ms. Nagmushiram told you about following your passion, not just being one track, that only studies is important. This is very, very important, because you have to have other things that you enjoy. For me, I used to love to read, so I used to do a lot of that. Even now, I like things like, I'm training for my first full marathon. I'm, learning to cycle after many, many years. So find something that excites you also, and make sure that you have a good balance in your life. So this really helped me go into the 2000 year very, very strong, going to a psychologist, strengthening myself, making sure I have a good balance, of my life over there. And in 2000, I would like to talk about the actual time when I qualified, because just a few lessons that I learned from that. I had gone for the heats. Heats is, in the morning, and the finals is when you're expected to do well. So yes, my goal was to qualify, to make the Olympic qualifying time, which was 2 minutes, 7 seconds. My best time was 2 minutes, 9 in the 200 meters freestyle. So how do I cut down 2 seconds? I think in the morning, what happened was I went into the heats very relaxed, full of confidence. And in my mind, okay, in the evening is when I'm going to, try out for the time. So something about taking that pressure off myself by saying, let me go enjoy myself, have a great race, qualify for the finals, and then I'll think about the Olympic qualifying time. That, I think, made a huge difference. So when I dived into the water, they say that you feel like you're in the zone. I'm sure some of you feel like this when there's a big project due, or you have a presentation that you have to make, or at the time of an exam, where all the hard work that you've done over the years, your confidence levels are high, your body, your mind, everything is focused and calm. And that's how I felt in the water. I felt very confident, very strong. And after I dived in, I felt amazing. And I swam those 4 laps in the 50-meter pool. And when I touched the wall, I had won my heat. And I could see my mother just jumping around and going crazy in the stands. And I was wondering, why is she so excited? Because yes, I made it to the finals, but the hard work is always in the finals. And when I looked around to see my time, I realized that from 2 minutes 9, I had gone faster than the 2 minutes 7 qualifying time, and I'd done 2 minutes 6. So I had qualified, then and there for the Olympics. So one of the greatest moments in my life is, my friends and my parents congratulating me. My dad was working hard here in India to be able to afford to send us there, and to call him and tell him that, yes, I've qualified for the Olympics. So it's amazing when you achieve something that you've dreamt about your whole life, you put so much effort into. that kind of feeling rivals, there's nothing that can rival that, And even though as sports people, as Olympic athletes, we don't really get any kind of money or any funding from, prize money from our sport. It's not like a sport like cricket where you have huge IPL sponsorships, My parents might have spent close to 80 to 90 lakhs. They sold their house in Chennai to put that money towards my swimming, And both mom and dad worked very hard in their own respective jobs to provide for us. So all those things, came to a fore, and I felt so grateful that I could do something for them. 2000 was a great year where I also got to receive the Arjuna Award from the President of India. So that's another great thing that, sometimes it's not about the money, or it's not about, it's more about the experiences that you have, the people you get to meet, and for me, one of those, one of those moments was going into Rashtrapati Bhavan. Imagine going to meet the President of India. And, it was a great moment. I could introduce him to my parents and my coach shortly after the award ceremony. So that kind of thing, I think, made more an impact on me than any kind of prize money or sponsorship deal I could have. And that's what kept me motivated. And, I tried for my second Olympics in 2004. Unfortunately, it was cut short by a very bad back problem. I had back surgery, and I got back into the pool in 2002. And I had lost out 2 years of time. But like they say, you should never make excuses. I did not qualify for the 2004 Olympics. So life is not always a fairy tale, Just because I made the 2000 Olympics doesn't mean, even with a lot of hard work and effort, I wasn't able to go in 2004. And that's when I decided that, let me take what I've learned. And it was almost a natural progression that I want to do something I love. And what I love to do was be in the pool and enjoy swimming. And that's when I decided to start my academy in 2004 and start teaching people how to swim. So before I move on to my next part of my story, which is about how I set up my business, and that you will also understand more as management students, the difficult obstacles we had to face, the challenges, my learnings over the years. I'd like to just, open out the floor to any of you students. If you could unmute yourself, if there are any questions you'd like to ask me on whatever I've said so far, whether it's about my swimming career or the different trades that we've learned, you can just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask me.
Any questions, students? You can ask questions to madam. Students? Yes?
Ma'am, can I ask something?
Sure, Gunnar, go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
Ma'am, how did the motivation played the role in your career, ma'am? Did you self-motivate, or probably you got motivation from your parents?
Yes, that's a great question, because like you said, where does the motivation come from? One, like I said, you have to have the goals. My goal was, yes, get to the Olympics. So, every morning when I woke up at 4 a.m., a lot of the times I did not feel great. I just wanted to sleep. Imagine I'd moved to Bangalore after a few years because Karnataka has the best swimmers. So I've been in Karnataka from 1994 itself. But you wake up, imagine in December, we did not have heated pools. You're exhausted from 6-7 days of hard training, and you still have to go back to the pool at 5 a.m. So that's when I think that internal motivation plays a very big role. What do you say to yourself in the moments where you would either give up and put off your alarm and go back to sleep, or you can push yourself to get up and chase your goals? So that's where the internal motivation is very important. Very important to make sure that you have your eyes firmly set on the goals. Sometimes maybe you have to change your goals, maybe you are trying and trying, not able to achieve it. Make some small modifications in that, and I feel that's.
Nisha, you are gone on mute, yeah.
Very, very important to always keep your head on your shoulders. So every time I win a medal, I would make sure that it never got to my head. That's something my parents were very particular. My dad, in fact, especially, he would say that even if you're the state champion, you could train and try and be a national champion. If you're a national champion, you should try and be an Asian champion. If you're Asian champion, try and take on the world beater. So never be satisfied with whatever you achieve. Be happy, enjoy your success, but continuously set new goals. That is what happens. You get very complacent. After my first Olympics, I could have said that I'm fine. I made one Olympics. I'm an Olympian. I can relax now, but I realized that I still wanted to do more. I wanted to go for the 2004 Olympics and maybe make it to the semi-finals. That was my goal. Now, unfortunately, that did not happen. So, it's about learning from your failures and, motivating yourself. Yes, I definitely say a team plays a very big role. A lot of people think of swimming as an individual sport. But if you look at it, we have, if you had to swim 8 kilometers morning, 8 in the evening, unless you have a great team around you, a coach to motivate you, swimmers who are swimming alongside with you, be having a little chat with them, or sometimes discussing that, oh, I'm quite tired today. All these things make a huge difference where that helps you get to your goals. So definitely people would, like I think Aditya is saying, how do you keep the self-motivation permanent? There's no such thing as permanent self-motivation. Yes, you will have ups and downs. You might think of me because I'm giving the talk today saying that I am very, very positive all the time. No, I also have many days where I feel my life is very tough or I have certain challenges. How do I overcome them? But one thing sports teaches you is as bad even if you're injured and you feel like you can't do it, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. So keep yourself focused on the good things, not on the bad things. So when I had my back surgery, my parents were worried that, oh my God, my daughter might have a tumor. They found I had a tumor on my backbone and I had to have a surgery to remove it. So for a young kid, I was more bothered that I couldn't swim. My parents were bothered that maybe I have cancer. So finally, they took out the tumor. It was not cancerous and I was able to get back into the pool. But definitely that those 2 years of tough times where I was not able to swim for 2 years properly, a lot of physiotherapy, a lot of rehab, I think that taught me more than winning a lot of gold medals. Yes, you learn a lot of things from when you have success and how to handle success. Failure is also part of it. But when you're faced with a lot of obstacles, how you overcome them, the people are there who help you, the people that you lean on to help you get through the tough times, that is very important. So no, motivation can never be permanent. You have to keep bringing it back, refocus, take some time out. Sometimes, you might be burnt out. I find this a lot with athletes or even now running my own business where sometimes I feel like it's too much, and maybe I have to take a day or two off, go for a small holiday or take a little time exercising every morning. That is my time for myself where that makes me do something I love. I don't have to worry about the pressure of work or the family or anything. So you need to continuously find some time to relax, renew yourself, take some time out where maybe you can be quiet, do something you love, like, go to the ocean, go for a nice holiday or go meet up with some friends. So very important to take some time to recover and then get back to what your purpose is in life. So that's what I would tell all of you is motivation is not constant. So you have to keep telling yourself, number one, overcoming obstacles, how you talk to yourself in your head, like I said, is the most important thing. The conversation that you have with yourself, that helps to build up your self-worth. So don't listen to what other people say when it's negative. Yes, of course, you should listen to the positive as well, but everything you should be very neutral about, listen to what they have to say, learn a little bit from it. But at the end of the day, you are the only one that can influence yourself. So be very clear about what your goals are. Right now, I'm sure it is very difficult going through the pandemic, online classes, doing some of your labs, coming to the college, you're worried about your health or your parents, or, what does the future hold in terms of work opportunities. There's so many things that I'm sure all of you are going through. So like I said, be confident, know that you are doing everything you can. You're so lucky to have such great education from Rama Institute of Management. My dad taught there as well for a while, and he tells me what a great faculty is there, the atmosphere on the campus, the kind of the opportunities that you have that maybe 20, 30 years ago kids your age didn't have. So make the most of it. And everything, remember, ultimately is nothing is permanent. Like the only constant is change, right? So even with me, my academy was doing very well. Yes, so Ms. Nagmosham was telling them about what others think. Yeah, I think nowadays it's social media, and it happens to me as well. Instagram, somebody says something mean to you. Like I had put on almost 25 kgs post having my kids. And obviously I didn't look like an athlete anymore. So many times when I post something on Facebook or Instagram, people would make comments and say, oh, I thought you're an Olympic athlete, but you're so fat. And definitely that would affect me. But I would say that, okay, when I have time and I have, more opportunity to work out, I will get back to my old self and lose weight. So I took this COVID lockdown phase as my chance to get back to my old self. Over the years, yes, I have lost weight steadily for the last 4 or 5 years. I started training every morning. But instead of letting this negativity get to me that, oh my God, I'm so fat, people are laughing at me, looking at my size, I took it as a challenge that, okay, you're saying that I can't do it, I will do it now. So not only to say that you are wrong, but also to prove that, yes, I am worth it. I've done it before. I've overcome my obstacles. I've reached my goals. I can do it again. So in the lockdown, instead of sitting around in the house and doing nothing, I would train, twice or thrice a day. I would go for a morning run on my road outside, make sure my mask is on. I would go down and do some skipping or play with my kids, run around with them. And in the process, I lost close to 8 kgs in the lockdown in 9 months, So it gave me also that confidence that, yes, I knew I can get back to my old weight. It really needed me to be more focused, to have a little extra time on my hands. So I think it's very important to have only the friends around you who, who help you, who are on your team. You don't want people who are constantly being negative with you. And I think in this lockdown also you'll realize who your true friends are. They're the ones who kept in touch, took extra effort to do a WhatsApp call or a Zoom call with you. They make you feel good after you talk to them. So hang around with those kind of people. Like I will tell you, even now, I love to go to events or talks or to other sports events because I love to interact with people who are achievers. Like a great example is Kiran Majumdar-Shaw. We both started something called BPAC, the Bangalore Political Action Committee, which is trying to help different issues, whether it's garbage collection, whether it's, different issues that are plaguing the state right now. And one thing I remember was somebody like Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, who is, one of the most well-known female founder CEOs, but also someone who is known to have started from a really low level, not with, funds from, not that her business was handed to her. She started from scratch in her own garage. She built up her business and now she runs like an empire, but she's somebody who's so down to earth. And one thing I remember from her is zero attitude. And this is one thing you learn from all the great CEOs, the great entrepreneurs, is if you come to a meeting, Kiran would be there 10 minutes before the start of the meeting. I would feel so bad if I come 1 or 2 minutes late because somebody like her is running a multi-billion-dollar industry is sitting there before me. So how can I say, yes, I had to deal with twins at home and a smaller business, but that is nothing compared to what she probably has to deal with. So she does not make excuses. She's always on time, very professional. This is something another friend of mine just got chosen as, he's just made it to he's the CEO of Starbucks India. He just got his promotion and, he was telling me something great that Starbucks does. He says, what they do is they say, great that you're the CEO, but we want you to know every single part of this business, starting from the cleaners in our cafes. So in the last 2 months, and he takes over his role only after another month. So for the last 2 to 3 months, he has actually been doing every single job, right? From 5 a.m. going to open up their store, cleaning the countertops, refilling the coffee machines. Then, after that, he went on to the manager role. How do you manage the customers? What do you do if there are problems? So they literally, even though he's the CEO of Starbucks India, they're making him go through these different roles. And what it does, number one, is it teaches you humility, that even the person at the lowest rung, which you might think is the lowest rung, like cleaning your store or your cafe, has so much value and gives so much to your company. And how you as a CEO should treat everybody. For me, I feel, obviously I still have a long way to go. I've had my academy, yes, from 2004, but that's quite new. I have a small team of about 24 staff right now. But, over the years, we've taught close to 3,000 to 4,000 people in a year. So I'm really happy with that. But, something I think I remember is you have to always, as a leader, for me, one of the traits that is not emphasized enough is kindness. People talk about, yes, having confidence, teamwork, how do you make the team bond? But for me, something that really is a great personality trait of a leader is to be kind. Remember that everybody who's working under you, they also have their own lives, their own insecurities, fears. And if you can listen to them when they talk to you, whether it's the cleaner who comes to you with some small issue that they have, or whether it's the head of your finance team, each should be given equal importance, because if those people are on your side, literally you can get through anything. That's when you see your business succeed. For me, like I said, I started in 2004 as just myself running around to apartments, doing swimming classes, doing 8-9 hours a day. And I don't drive. That is my big fear, which I'm still trying to get over. So, while I'm teaching people to overcome their fear in the pool, I still obviously have these things I have to continue working on. But from that, when I started getting people to come on board and start teaching with me, hiring some coaches, luckily my husband, Bikranjit, he actually gave up his job in Decathlon and decided to help me out fully, because he realized I didn't have that back-end knowledge, how to run a business. So this is why I think what you're doing is very, very important. I didn't have the opportunity to do a management course. Someday I would love to do it. So who knows if I can do the, the short course that you have, the postgrad course in sports management. I would love that. And so literally for me, it was a learning experience from day one, right from how to do an Excel sheet, to manage my database, to interact with customers, marketing. So when you're a small team, the great part about it is you literally have to work at every single level. You don't have a choice. Like, in the lockdown, how do we adapt to the new era? Like in swimming, you cannot do anything online, right? Other sports, you could do some online classes. So how do you keep your staff motivated? How do you keep the swimmers motivated? We have a team of about 20 youngsters who compete at the state and national levels. And just 1 hour before this call, one of my swimmers won a silver and bronze medal. And I'm so happy. It makes me even more proud. Not because, yes, of course, she's very talented. She has a great future. But the fact that the 9 months she was not able to swim. So we would have motivational talks with her. We would make sure they were very fit physically on land. And, as soon as the pools were open, getting them back in, giving them that confidence. So, I feel something like teaching, or, our academies where swimming, you teach not only a life skill, but you're teaching kids how to believe in themselves. You're instilling the same things that were instilled in me, whether it's discipline, whether it's perseverance, how to overcome failures, the same things that we are being taught. I saw a question earlier where you mentioned, a lot of parents in India push their kids more towards cricket and badminton. Yes, I mean, the reason they do that is it's a more visible sport. They can see the funding coming in. So, a sport like swimming, they don't think about, how will you support yourself? People, when I started at my academy, would laugh at me. They would say, oh, you're a swimming teacher. Like, why don't you just take a government job? I said, no, I would be miserable in a government job. They're like, but it'll pay well. I said, for me, the money was not important. I wanted to, one, do something I love. Number two, feel like I'm creating some impact. And when I see some young kid finish their first lap, or if I see one of my swimmers winning a medal, that to me is more important than, having crores in my bag. So that's what makes me, happy at the end of the day. And I wake up in the morning not thinking like, oh my God, it's Monday, I have to go to work. So when you're doing something you're passionate about, which is what I think, we were talking about having a multidisciplinary approach to both your education and to life. Try out different things. Like recently, I've enrolled for a course in counseling. I did psychology in my college days, and then I was so busy setting up my academy. I lost a bit of that, lost touch with psychology. And then I realized that this is something I really enjoyed. And in the lockdown, not only myself, but everybody went through psychological, troubles, tough times. So that's when I thought, let me pursue this more. Even though I have quite a packed schedule, how do I challenge myself to do something different? So I'm enrolling from June into an academy where they do a counseling course. So, even when I talk to youngsters, when I talk to teenagers who come to me with some problem, I'm able to give them some really good, positive feedback, something that will help them in their career, not hurt them. And also it shouldn't affect me. Sometimes you're talking to other people, sometimes it affects you. I saw a question just now saying, how important is family support? Definitely, not just family, but the team of people you have around you. My family, like I said, they have gone to the next level. When I quit swimming, my dad was very upset. But I told him that, financially, you all are going through such tough times. The reason I'm quitting is so I can also start working and help out. Number one, everybody started coming to the academy, including my mom and dad, and it became like a family affair, running a swimming academy. So that was a great part, but also to help contribute towards the finances in my own family. So that's how it started off. But then, now I've realized that even the whole team, a few days ago, we unfortunately lost my mother-in-law, my husband's mom. And yes, it was a very, very difficult time. But the first people here in the morning were my team of coaches, my staff, whether it's the maintenance guys at my pool, whether it's my accountant, they were the first people here at 6 a.m., by the time we messaged people, it was 5 a.m. By 6 o'clock, there were 6 or 7 of them here, right from organizing some snacks for the guests, right from, making sure me and my husband had eaten, to, organize some of the funeral arrangements. That's when you realize that, wow, I have not only taught many people, yes, we have done well financially, but you're really forming a team of people who are invested in you, not just, okay, I'll take the money and go and I don't care what happens, It's great that, they've become like family to me. So I think one thing that you learn from sports is the importance of the team element. Even right now, your own classmates, the faculty that you're interacting with, they are your team. They are your people who can help you out. I'm sure in many times you've reached out to them, not just for educational help, for some other thing. Maybe you're facing some small difficulties, or you want to share some really good news about some other part of your life. So that's the great part I feel about our country. I feel another reason why I think India has, yes, we have huge number of infections. But if you look at the fact that the number of overall deaths is much lower than other countries. Why is that? Number one, I think our immunity is better. But also, I think our mental health is much better. Why? Because we have a lot of people around us. We have that social interaction. We talk to the neighbors in our apartment when there's a lockdown. We will be talking to some, people in the other buildings by waving at them from the balcony. So it's this amazing quality that we have in our country where you can just go into someone's house and, walk in, bring some food and sit for a meal. It's not so formal like, they have out of India. So let's use that as part of our strengths to help our business, to help ourselves grow. And, the great thing about running a business in India, I feel, is there are multiple opportunities, to talk purely about sports for any of you who might be interested in getting into sports management. It's one of the fastest growing industries. They were, the Fortune magazine was talking about $640 billion is the sports industry, and there's so many avenues you can get to. It could be marketing, it could be event management, it could be an academy, facility management. There are so many avenues that you can get into. And my talk, when I give talks to all these swimmers or other athletes and they're about to retire, I tell them, if you want to go abroad and get a degree, fine. But, now we're lucky that, organizations such as MS Ramaiah is one of the top names in the country, is offering this in India itself. So imagine all these athletes who now want to get back into sports. They come and do a management course and then they open their own businesses or they go to work for one of the big names in the sports industry. This is what will help the sports, ecosystem grow. This is what will help us get those medals at the Olympics. It's, people going abroad and learning is fine, but I always tell them, come back to India and share their expertise here, give back to our own country. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to stay here. I always wanted to be in India because I feel we have so much of talent here. We have, a billion plus people, young kids who are playing cricket on the roads. They're, getting into swimming pools. They're playing badminton. So it's more about exposing the whole country to sports. And then if you look at it, being in sports, there's so many great things. One thing is, you'll never have the same day twice. At least this is what I've realized in my industry. Somebody who's running a business, I'm never bored. I can never say that I'm bored because every day is new challenges. One day the pool water might turn green. So you have to speak to your maintenance people. You rush over to the pool. How do you fix that problem? Another day, somebody might be winning a medal. Another day, you have to worry about, what kind of new certifications, what kind of new courses can we offer. So it's very, very challenging. I would find it. And yes, I do have to sit in front of a computer for a couple of hours a day. I like to be involved in the admin part of it. So I know what's happening, feedback from the customers. But also every morning, when my friends meet me years later, they tell me, Nisha, you're doing the same thing. You still smell of chlorine. You still you're still tanned. Your work outfit is still a swimsuit. And, we still see you enjoying the pool, being happy inside and outside the water. So that's a great part about doing something you're passionate about. Tell me if you guys have any more questions for me. I'd love to hear it. You can even just type it in.
This is Madhumita here.
Tell me, Madhumita.
Ma'am, it was earlier been spoken again about the mental health and everything. And even our teachers told that how we youngsters panic over every small things. We'll end up taking wrong decisions. And we also get influenced at times by social media. And there's somewhere down the lane where we compare ourselves. So all such things happen. Ma'am, how do you think that we youngsters can work on our mental health, like from right now, from right today? How can we work so that we are mentally, emotionally stronger?
I think if you're having a very serious problem where you're feeling depressed or anything like that, you should definitely get some professional help. And don't feel bad about it. Sometimes when you go to a counselor or to a psychologist, it is 100% anonymous. Nobody will ever know, but it could save your life. It could make such a big change in your life. So if you're at that level where you're really having a tough time getting out of bed, you're very depressed, then seek a professional help. If it's something smaller where you're confused or struggling with something, I would say reach out to somebody who's older than you, who you have a good rapport with. It could be an elder relative, it could be your own sister or somebody you admire, like even a faculty member. Maybe speak to them and say, this is what my issue is, and maybe they can help you better. Like you said, I think there's so much of social media where you do compare yourself. Even that happens with me as well. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. But for me, what I keep thinking about is that, at the end of the day, my mental health is important because I just think about the number of people that are dependent on me or whose lives I influence. You know, it could be my 7-year-old twins, my husband, my older parents who I have to look after as well, my own academy. So I keep thinking to myself that I cannot afford to let myself get into depression. I need to work on my issues, mentally talk it out with somebody I trust or with a counselor. And only when I'm strong can I affect positively all the people in my life. So think about all that you have to lose, right? You're in a great college. You want to see yourself doing well, moving on to a great job. So now is not the time for self-doubt. If it does happen, talk to somebody about it. And sometimes, you know, a good thing you can do is learn to say no. This is something it's helped me. I was very bad at saying no. I used to like to please everyone. So even if I'm very tired, somebody asked me to come and help out with something or do some event, I would say yes. Nowadays, if I can't do it, I'll very clearly say no. Unfortunately, I can't do it. Maybe next month, if I have more time, let me know. So that I think is part of growing up as well, learning to say no, prioritize what is important. If I have 1 or 2 hours extra, I would rather spend it with my kids, you know, spending time with them, or I would rather go and exercise so I'm physically and mentally healthier. So learn to say no. And sometimes with social media, the great thing about it is you can just block somebody or unfriend them. If they are a negative impact influence in your life and they're not impacting you in a good way, this is the time to slowly step away, you know. Do it so that you don't hurt the other person. They might be unintentionally or being unaware of doing it. But you be very clear that, see, this is not working for me. It's affecting me mentally. And just step away. Take time out to distance yourself from the negative influences and try and hang out with a group of friends, colleagues who are like-minded, have similar goals, like, you know, starting their own businesses, or, you know, we want to do well in college. Stay with that. That positive mindset definitely helps. You know, if you notice, all my friends are very, very positive. You know, sometimes if they do get negative, sometimes they reach out to me, or if I have issues, I reach out to them. We try and have each other's back. So that's something you learn from COVID, how to, you know, take the few people who are your circle of friends who influence you a lot, and that can make you stronger. So even if it affects you, learn to talk it out and don't keep it all inside. I feel that's something that youngsters do. They want to have a great, on social media, everything looks fine, but they could be really struggling. So talk to somebody who can really help you through this time.
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, these days we could see that many sports persons were just selling vegetables in the market, or they're going through very tough stages just
Yes.
because they don't have that influence as the others have, or probably they couldn't bear that money which is required to go forward. And
Yeah.
won't this give a message to parents that it would be better for our students to just give good education so that they can have some better options rather than this selling on all? By seeing all this, don't they get those negative thoughts, ma'am? Ma'am, and just the second question is that, ma'am, there are still those stereotypes where girls are supposed to play some games, boys are supposed to play some games, which are probably more physical in nature. So how can we just remove these stereotypes and all, ma'am?
That's great. Yeah. In India, I think there are a lot of stereotypes more than some of the other countries. Slowly, people are breaking through it. One thing that helps is having strong female role models. You look like a Saina Nehwal or a Sindhu or a Mary Kom, who's a mother, you know, winning boxing world championship titles. There's a movie made of her. So one thing I think that helps, like you said, how do parents, understand that sports is a great career option. A movie like Mary Kom will make these people, or Dangal or any of these, you know, the great thing with film and film stars, it has a good influence to show that there are still so many positives in sports. Yes, nowadays, if you are, I of course competed in 2000, but 21 years later, things have changed. There is a lot of money in sports, you know, and you can support your career. You can make it your profession. I know Saina and Sindhu, now they have to turn away sponsors now. Some of them are earning close to what a Virat Kohli is earning. So number one, women can do it. They can play different sports. And how it starts from us. So me as a young mom, I have young kids. If my kids say, I want to play cricket, I'm not going to say cricket is like a male sport. I'll be like, sure, you can do it. So I really have to push myself and make sure that our kids also learn that anything is possible. If my parents had told me that I can't do it, I would definitely have not gone to the Olympics, right? So I think what we teach our kids, and say even for you guys, even though you're not married or anything, but suppose there's a volleyball tournament or a swimming tournament and you hear about it, go over and support the people. It's the public support that ultimately helps. It drives up the sales, the TRPs on the channels, more people are involved. So we need that. Why does cricket do so well? Because BCCI has marketed it very well. They put IPL, which is very, entertaining and fast-paced. Others, cricket is a bit boring. Here, IPL has made it more fun, more glamorous, So they are very smart by doing that, and the whole country has gone behind them. So what we can do is also say that education is important. Like I said, why are those people out there selling vegetables? Maybe they only worked on their sports part of it. They didn't do enough educationally, so that they have nothing to fall back on. You should always have that plan B, or even an education will help definitely run your own business. Like I said, why is sports management so important? Because I told you, I learned a lot by being in this industry for 20 years, also through my husband who had worked in different corporate environments. But if I had done a management course, and at some point, maybe I will still do it, if I have the time, I'm going to make some time and do it. It will definitely help you grow your own business. And so we also have to talk to parents when I go to colleges and talk to kids. Not only do I address the kids about confidence and, going after their dreams, I also tell the parents that you need to support your kids. Don't just say, like you said, I want you to be a doctor, an engineer. Frankly, I know more sports professionals who are earning 10 times more than some of the lawyers or doctors, because there's an abundance of lawyers and doctors in the country. But there's so many, there's such a big growing sports industry, sports businesses are just taking off all over the country. And sports tourism, there's so much that is happening. So if you get the proper knowledge, the proper education, if you're passionate about something like sports, you will wake up every day, number one, having more impact, probably having better paychecks and doing something that you love, So why go with the herd? It also takes, for you guys, it's also about pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. This is something athletes do very often, because you cannot grow in your comfort zone, right? So push yourself to do something that you're not confident in. Like for me, going back to something like counseling is quite scary, because you have to turn inwards. You have to work on yourself as well when you're working with others. But I'm kind of pushing myself. I know it'll be quite uncomfortable for 8-9 months of the course. It is a tough course, very time consuming, very emotionally consuming. But I'm doing it because I want to grow in that element. I want to have other options as well. Like, even in the lockdown, I also realized that there was absolutely no way for me to provide for my family in those 9 months, because all I'm doing is only, sports. So you should always have those options of things that you're passionate about that you could always turn into a plan B. Sometimes things don't go always like you plan. So having good education, having some kind of passion, hobby that you're, very serious about, that you enjoy, that could one day also become. I have so many people who are into IT or lawyers who've quit their jobs and become swimming teachers with me. And why? They might be earning less in my academy, but they feel there's more impact. They're getting more time to do other things with their family. They have a more well-balanced life. So think about all those things. And at the end of the day, sports is an amazing field. So everybody should be doing it. You guys should be doing it, whether it's playing badminton across your front gate or going for a run in the morning. Do it because it keeps you physically and mentally healthy. That, I think, for 2020 and 2021, that for me is the biggest learning, that if you don't have your physical health and your mental health, then there is no use of having crores in your bank, or so that's very important, to take care of yourself mentally and physically. Any more questions, guys, before I wind up?
Any questions, students?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, ma'am. Prince Das in this side.
Hi.
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, ma'am. First of all, ma'am, I am happy to see you for the first time, because I have been seeing you in Wikipedia many times. Because, ma'am, I am also a swimming sports person, and I have been played national. And I just take you as a guardian, because I have been search a lot for the ATN Olympians, all the things, ma'am. Ma'am, it's my very gratefulness that today I just meet with you. Ma'am, I have a question that I have been quit my swimming for the last 3 years. And ma'am, if I want to pursue my career with sports, ma'am, is there any opportunity for me that I can go through with my passion?
Definitely. I think you can, first of all, as MSRM is introducing a sports management course as one of your minors, I would say definitely enroll for that. Because I'm telling you, from my point of view, not having that background, it took me a long time to learn all the things that you can learn in a course. So when you have experts and so much of study material and research over the years from the best practices from all over the world, that will give you a head start in your career. So first of all, get educated. Like even for me, in my own terms of coaching, I went out, found different certifications, whether it's Australian swimming coaching certifications. I wanted to, just because I'm an Olympian doesn't mean I would be a good teacher. So I took it upon myself to do that study. So now not only am I certified, I also teach other swim teachers, and other coaches all over the country how to teach. And so this is something you have to do is one, work on the education part of it. The next thing is go and interact, you have internships, reach out to different companies, and you can do an internship and you see what excites you. Is it sports management? Is it being part of an academy? Is it the actual art of coaching itself? There's so many avenues that you can, get into in terms of sports. So, the fact that you're in MSRM, now you have a chance of having a good solid foundation. You can add on to it by doing the sports management, your minor as an elective, and then that will take you into good stead when you go out there in the world. Because as much as you read in books, yes, you also have to be on the ground also doing things. So get the opportunity. I'm sure they have great contacts, your faculty and the staff, your counselors will also help you, put you in touch with people who can bring you into the company. So you see what it takes on a day-to-day basis. And yes, it's tough, but any business is tough. But the great thing about sports, being in the business of sports, is one is it's really large impact that all over people get say impacted. I find like over the years, 15 years later, some swimmer will come to me saying, "Ma'am, because I learned swimming with you, I was able to get into my college swimming team, and I did this." So many small things that years later will come back and make you feel really great about yourself. That's something I think is you see more often in sports. The impact that it has, it unifies countries, different religions, different nationalities, because sports is one common playing field. So that was what is the great thing about the Olympics, right? Because when you're there, everybody's competing for that gold, silver, bronze. Nobody cares about the color of your skin, your background. It's all about competing for the greater good. So if you are really keen on it, put in the time to educate yourself, do the sports management course, and then try out in different areas of the sports businesses. There are so many things, and then see what you find you're passionate about, and then you'll definitely have a great career ahead.
Okay, ma'am. I am ready to do hard with my swimming career, ma'am. Actually, it's my very dream to play in Olympic. But as you know, ma'am, our Indian parents are like education is more important than sports. That's why, ma'am, I just get disconnected. That's why, ma'am, I just ask.
No, definitely.
Thank you, ma'am.
My parents luckily pushed me,
ma'am.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely, if you ever want to, reach out in an internship and come and, intern with my academy, you can definitely see what's going on. And, even something like, say, you want to compete in some sports yourself. Right now, you might be working towards a career. You could still do this in your free time. You could still compete in swimming. They have something called masters events for, people above 26 years, where you can even go up to the world championship. So never give up on your dreams. You can do both. You can have you can have your profession, and you can have your hobbies and your passions, and it can go hand in hand. So I think that balance is very important in your life. So good luck to you for your future as well.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nisha. Thanks. Any more questions? Okay, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. It was great interacting with you today. And definitely, if you have any questions, like I said, the great thing about social media is also you can reach out to me, or you can even mention it to your faculty and they can send me some emails if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer it. And once this COVID, a pandemic is slowly died down, then I definitely will visit you at campus and interact with you face to face.
Yeah, we look forward to that. Yeah.
We would like to meet you actually.
Definitely, definitely, ma'am. Definitely, we will come for sure.
Strengthen this program, the sports management program.
Definitely. So I would love to come and share my
from your
insights
side.
as well. Okay, thank you, Anita. Yeah, thanks. Thank you, ma'am. It was great to be here today and see all these youngsters were, full of possibilities for their future.
Yeah.
Wonderful. It was really motivating to us too, actually.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very nice students as well. From the fact of having to understand how important setting goals is, to be dedicated and being self-motivated and trying to manage our time effectively. I think that was a very good takeaway for all our students. Thank you so much.
Yes, Mrs. Anita was saying to say hi to my dad. So my dad has
Yes.
very fond memories of being part of the faculty at Ramaya Institute of Management and some of his best times. And unfortunately, he had a health issue. Otherwise, I'm sure he would still be there even now. So he definitely says hello and passes his best wishes to all of you.
Nisha,
Thanks, everyone.
I also want to actually convey my regards to Professor Millet. He was
Yes, I
very
will,
good,
Dr.
not only
Sakul, thank
colleague,
you.
he's a very good friend. Still now we are on Facebook. And
Great.
I had an opportunity to go to your father's apartment and to see not all your awards, only maybe 10%, yours and Reshma's. It's
Yes.
really nice and nice
Thank
to have you today. And you spoke so
Thank you,
well.
ma'am.
It was really motivating. And I know
Thank
that
you.
how much inspirations you have got from your parents and
Yes,
especially
definitely.
Professor Millet. Okay,
Yes,
so
definitely. Thank you. I'll pass on his wishes to you, from you to him as well.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for
Thanks a
having,
lot.
for having taken time to interact with our students. I would also like to extend thanks to our director, Dr. Manasa, for her constant support and encouragement. And thank you to Dr. Triveni for having arranged this wonderful session for our students. I also extend thanks to our IT department, Mr. Kiran, for having made sure the session went on very smoothly without any technical glitches. Thank you so much, ma'am. We look forward for many more such interactions with you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank
In
you.
fact,
Bye.
Nisha, we would like
Thank you.
to tell Nisha, can I just make a point?
Sure, no problem.
Your dad, Professor Millet, is so fond in every sentence of his speech. He will include Nisha, and it's the same from your side. So we are so happy to see this kind of a mutual support from father, daughter, and also your mom. So hats off to your
Yes,
parents
yes.
for your continued support in your success, Nisha. Thanks.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so
Thank
much for
you.
interacting with our students.
Thanks a lot. Nice to meet everyone again online.
Sure.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, ma'am. Bye.
Bye.